In this video, I'm going to discuss risk response strategies. We know that risk is probability into impact. Probability means what are the chances that something is going to happen, like 1%, 2%, 3%, up to 99.99999. Of course, if it becomes 100%, it's never a risk. It's more of a issue if something bad is there, and if it is going to be a good thing, we can say it's a fact. Okay. So if something is 100%, it's for sure that it is a fact. 0.1 to 99.99, it's a ratio, it's a risk, because the probability is there and this thing can happen. So probability into impact, as a summary, is basically all about, we talk about risk. And we can have positive risk and negative risk. Here I'm going to talk about negative risk response strategy. The strongest risk response strategy is to avoid the risk. Achha, this is an important thing to hear. In PMP language, avoiding the risk is not that you avoid actually the English avoid risk. No. Avoiding means you changing the plan in a way, that the risk never occur. So you make probability 0 or you make impact 0. One of those things you make 0. So let's say, let me give you an example. It's raining and you want to go to somewhere, but you read it from the news that the traffic is going to be too much, the chances of an accident, snow can happen, flood can come, so many things. This happens in New Jersey a lot. Whenever there's a rain, these things can happen, these things does happen. So in order to avoid all those things, all those challenges, what do? We do not go at all. Okay, we do not go at all. We don't go at all. This is, we have avoided the risk, or we postpone the plan to the next day or next week, when that thing will not be there, when that problem is not going to be there. So we have avoided that patent risk. This is called avoiding the risk. Avoiding the risk. Now, let's say I cannot avoid the risk. Avoiding, of course, the best strategy if I can do. I cannot avoid the risk, let's say. Okay. What I'm going to do, I'm trying to decrease the probability or impact. So in the same case, let's take the same scenario. What I'm going to do, I'm going to drive slowly. I'm going to wear safety harnesses, safety belts. That is mitigate. Okay. So in risk response strategy, whenever you decrease the intensity of the risk, whenever you decrease that, you have mitigated that risk. So I just mitigated that patent risk. Now, what is transference of a risk? Transference of a risk is that you give that risk to a third party. You give that risk to somebody else to take action on that. Now, whenever we get somebody, we pay them a premium, like buying an insurance. But important thing is, whenever you are giving somebody to handle that risk, make sure they are actually accountable to handle it. It is possible that you gave them the risk, but they were just doing the task, they were not responsible to complete it. Okay, so who is gonna handle that risk? Transfer the risk, buying the insurance, but making the other person is accountable for that. Okay, accountable example is insurance. Escalate is very easy. Whenever risk is beyond your limit, I like to say that it is beyond your pay grade limit, I escalate to the senior management. I make it to the senior management. When it goes above your threshold limit, when it is above your threshold limit, I send it to, okay, now my management will take care of it. That is escalation. Avoid, mitigate, transfer. These three are proactive action. Proactive action. Reactive actions are those where you identify the risk, you document it. You do not take immediately. Escalate can be proactive or reactive. Like in escalate, you wait for that, then the trigger happens, then you do that. Otherwise, you immediately take action into that. Now, accepting the risk. It's a very important thing. Many times people think accepting means not doing anything. No, no, no. Accepting means you identify the risk, you document it, you document that patent risk in the risk register. You set a risk owner, list of all risk owners, anyone can be a risk owner, list of all risk owners is in the risk register. Those people will handle the risk. Okay. Now, risk owner will monitor the risk, will review the risk, and when the trigger happens, when the trigger happens, trigger is an event that happen. Trigger you can call it a precursor, pre-risk event. Before the risk, a trigger event will happen, and he will implement agreed risk response. So if the risk response is already agreed, contingency reserves or contingency money is going to handle it. You do not need any change request. He will implement the risk response, and this is how we handle the risk. Okay. So avoid the most effective strategy. If you cannot avoid the risk, like cannot kill the risk, we mitigate it. Okay, decreasing the probability. We transfer the risk to the third party, and they by buying insurance, by paying them. Escalation, when the risk goes above threshold limit, the agreed limit, where the threshold limit is defined in the risk management plan. Except you identify the risk, you put it in the risk register. Okay, that risk owner monitor the trigger. When the trigger happen, the agreed risk response is implemented. I hope that make sense to you about the risk response strategy. Cool. All right, do subscribe.